Hello, y'all. How are you doing? I know this is kind of a weird way to start because it seems like I ought to have some theme music, but maybe for the next time. Okay. For now, I'm introducing myself. I'm Corey Mitchell, and earlier this summer, Ron Law had asked me if I would put together a series of talks looking at Black perspectives on theater here in the U.S. And this is the first of those conversations, and I'm very excited for the guests that we're going to talk with this evening. I'm saying we're like it's more than just me that I'm going to talk with this evening. Growing up, I loved both of these artists, and I'm so thrilled to introduce to all of you, or reintroduce to all of you, our guests for the evening, Ms. Melba Moore and Ms. Shirley Jones of the Jones Girls. So let's bring them in and say hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Corey.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Corey.
Hi.
Hi.
I am so happy to see you. And how are you all doing this evening?
Great.
Doing just fine.
That's
Great.
good. That is,
Staying safe, staying in and staying safe.
that is the smart thing to do. I know that Shirley, you're down in Georgia, and Melba, you're up in New York. And I know in both cases, I understand how important it is to stay safe and to stay vigilant about this whole thing. But we're
So,
not here tonight to talk about COVID, right?
Right.
so I'm laughing because I told him don't say nothing about COVID.
Right.
And that was my
You,
only mention.
okay, no, you can talk about
Okay, that was my only mention for the evening.
it.
Now, how long, Melba, you have been in this business since the late 60s, yes?
Correct.
And surely it's the early 70s, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes. Okay, so what we're talking about is almost 100 years of experience between the two of you. So I know that there is some wisdom that is coming out tonight, yes?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So, um, the legend has it that Melba, you started as a music teacher, correct?
Correct.
And
Correct.
then decided, I'm going to do this for myself. And so um, I think you made friends with Valerie Simpson.
Correct.
Okay, so you were a studio singer.
Well, she introduced me into industry. Yes. My stepdad raised me. My natural dad was a big band leader. His name is Teddy Hill. He was very famous, very successful. So I have it in my genes. And my mother was a professional singer, and they worked together as musicians. So to make a long story a little shorter, they wanted me to have a real job. So they gave us good education. I majored in music education at Montclair Teachers College.
Hmm.
And then I came out and I started to teach. And then after a point, I said, you know what, Daddy? This is your dream. It's not mine. I don't want to be a teacher. I love it and I'm good at it. But I want to have fun like your mother. So he started taking me around to some of his colleagues. And one of the first people I met was Valerie.
Hmm.
So that's how I got into a studio singing and singing jingles and backup. That's what she did. And
Hmm.
so we shared that part of the industry. And on one of the recording sessions was being performed by Galton McDermott, who wrote the music and was also a great keyboardist for the Broadway show Hair. That's how I
Hmm.
got my first Broadway show.
That is incredible. And we're going to talk about hair in a second. But Shirley, you were singing with your sisters. And so when did you all start singing together?
Well, my mother started us singing together. She was the first Black gospel singer that RCA Records signed to their label. And she was very popular in the Midwest region.
Hmm.
So we started as her background singers.
Hmm.
And she trained us vocally. She was also a choir director for her church, so she knew voices. And once she heard that her three girls had these these beautiful voices, that she taught us how to blend and harmonize. And so we started out singing background for my mother in the gospel, and then went on to sing background behind absolutely everybody else that you could name,
Hmm.
because of the training that we got from her.
Now, I did have a follow-up question about that because I was wondering because there are so many, and I had a list here that includes literally icons that everybody would recognize, of course, and then like some soul music singers who I would, true
Yeah.
musicologists really get into and are like, wow, those are some deep cuts. But who were some of your favorite people that you collaborated with?
Oh, some of my favorite, of course, the lady herself, Diana Ross,
Hmm.
uh, Aretha Franklin, um, Helen Reddy. I enjoyed working on her album with her. Uh, Teddy Pendergrass, uh, Frida Payne,
Hmm.
everybody. And the funny thing is that there was one person on my list that I had not met or worked with, and that's Miss Melba Moore. And when we were in London together, I was like a kid in the candy store when she walked into the room, because I was like, she's the only person on my list of legends that, yeah, that I admire, that I had never worked with. So to have that opportunity, and we became the best of friends. We were over in London together for 2 weeks. Cam and his family were there, and it was the best time. And
Wow.
it's one of the experiences that will stay with me forever, meeting her. Because when I was in college, my first year of college, I got so angry with my parents for making me go to Wayne State University when I had had a scholarship to both Howard and Michigan State, that I
Hmm.
grew an afro and joined the African scene, the Afro American scene at Wayne State, which was like 2% black at the time I was going. And the first role I had was Ludabelle from Pearly.
What?
She was playing
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Oh,
And that was that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to meet her, because
oh,
she was on my bucket list. So
So when you
oh,
all went to London together, that was your first time actually meeting?
yes,
yes,
yes, it was.
Really?
Yep.
yeah.
I knew everybody, and I knew people that knew her. I knew people, and I was always like, "Oh, please tell Melba, I'm such a huge fan. I'm such a huge fan." And then when we actually were working together, and we were staying at the hotel, and she came down, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got to take a picture. We got to take a picture." And I got this one picture that Melba, that I'm gonna send you, that I just had
Okay.
framed for from Fracture. Oh, it's really nice of you and
Oh,
myself
thank
and Melissa with our sunglasses on, joking around.
I think that is incredible. And I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Pearlie, if I were to pan over, which I will not, for you to see the rest of my messy office, there is a poster on the wall because one of the first shows that I ever directed at the school where I am now is Pearlie. And the first lead role I ever played when I was in college was Reverend Pearlie. It was
Yes.
Pearlie Victoria
You
Judson.
know,
Wow.
it just reminds me of how much we have progressed in some ways. Because Pearly, now that it's been so many years since I've done Pearly, I see how it's come into the high schools and the colleges. It's almost like an important part of music, Black history, which
Black
is
Hmm.
history.
history. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that just walk him up the stairs and that dance break at the beginning. I don't know that anybody had seen like quite literally what I call a shout break
Listen, it was a.
in a
I
Broadway
didn't
show.
realize it, but it was the first gospel musical.
Hmm.
But I guess
Really?
because
Okay.
it was projected really for white people.
Hmm.
They didn't know what gospel was. We didn't call it that.
Yes, and such an amazing
And
cast.
can we remind people of the gospel singer in that opening scene, Linda Hopkins?
Yes, that's exactly what where I
Yeah.
was about to go. Is Linda Hopkins. If you ever go to YouTube and you look up your Tony performance, and when she goes into her falsetto in that first moan of "Walk Him Up the Stairs," woo!
She's
Yes.
ridiculous, I know.
It is.
And I'll tell you who was in the chorus was George Faison
Hmm.
was in the chorus,
Oh,
and
Yes.
Debbie Allen,
Debbie Allen and Ted Ross, who
Ted
ended up
Ross,
becoming
yeah.
the Scarecrow. I mean,
Excuse
excuse
me,
me, Cowardly Lion.
and Sherman Hemsley.
Hmm.
And if everybody watches Law and Order, you'll see Novella Nelson all the time. There's many, many more.
Yes, she
wow.
played Aunt Missy, and
Listen,
one of my favorite songs in Act Two is you and Novella singing "He
you
Can
can
Do It."
do it. We're gonna sing it. Oh,
Oh my gosh, I'll start sweating if I'm
well, but
singing
you
it.
know what? I have a lot of young people that have seen the video,
Hmm.
and you were doing it like they did. They like to sing and do all the parts.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
really, it's infectious. The show just draws you in. You want to be a part of it. It's just fun.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, um, in looking at this and looking at that time period, especially when we're looking at from the 70s, particularly the mid 70s, when I know that both of you were working all the time. Did you ever see were you ever in a situation where you found yourself thinking, if I were a man or if I were white, I would be treated differently?
I know Shirley's going to say the same thing. Like, you can't count the times. You can't count the times. That's something that's we
Right.
know as African Americans you're going to be a part of. And as an African American woman, I'm catapulted into stardom. So I'm in these fancy hotels working. And of course, every white man assumes that I'm for sale.
Hmm.
I guess I should be complimented because I guess I was cute.
Oh, you were.
Was.
That Africa and still are.
But you
Still
know what I'm
are.
saying? I don't think that if I were white, they would have considered that I was a hooker.
Hmm.
I'm sure that would not have
And
been the
I
case.
I often tell the story because people every time they find out that we worked with Diana Ross, of the first thing they say is, "Oh, is it really true that she was such um, a witch with the B word in front of it?" And I tell everyone, absolutely not. I said the one thing that I can say about Diana is that she was the great hottest entertainer in the world during
Hmm.
that time. She was a
Still, isn't
perfectionist,
she?
and that she was a perfectionist. And I tell people all the time, if she had been white and a man and insisted on perfection from her singers, from her band, from everyone, she would not have been, because she would, if she would, they would have said, "Oh, he's such a strong, determined man. He knows exactly what he wants."
Hmm.
So that's one of the things, that's the story I tell. If that a lot of times in the business, even us, if we had been white, a white group, uh,
Hmm.
we would have probably done a lot more opportunities would have been granted. But us, being black people, one thing I can say, we made our own opportunities and took
Absolutely.
advantage of them as they came. So
Absolutely. There are many, many examples we could give you. But we'll go
Oh,
on to
please give me
the
one.
next subject. But
Could you
right.
give me one?
hmm?
Would you consider giving me one?
Oh well, I remember I got into the Broadway show Hair and Pearly. I didn't have management because of the way things happen. I won't go into all that right now.
Hmm.
But my now ex-husband, Charles Huggins, and I met, and we were trying to find me a manager. And we went to all the major managers, um, artists that we knew that managed black artists, and they all turned me down because they said I was Broadway and I wouldn't be able to do R&B music or recorded music. Of course, everything they said I couldn't do, I had already done.
Mm-hmm.
So then Charles and I said, well, why don't we see what we can do? We started to manage me.
Mm-hmm. So you guys,
Wow.
yeah, and it worked out pretty well. That
Yeah.
because I actually went back and I watched. YouTube is an amazing database because I
Isn't
was
it?
able to watch that very first episode of you and yours and Clifton's variety show. And I mean, I was absolutely gobsmacked because, for one thing, you had Mom's Mabley on there.
Mom's Mabley.
You
Wow.
know? But then you also had Jean Stapleton and um,
Oh,
uh,
excuse me. She was singing the lead instead of Aretha, Shirley.
yes, she's
What?
singing Rock Steady.
Oh, right, steady. And we
Oh
were the
no.
backup. I was doing comedy then.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Oh my
Wow.
gosh. That was a clip that I had pulled that I was like, okay, dare I have Melba watch watch herself dancing back up to Gene Stapleton to
Please
Edith
spare
Bunker.
me.
Okay. Edith Bunker singing Aretha Franklin is not
I can
something
do a good. I can do a good imitation of you. Rock steady, baby. Is what I feel now. Excuse
we'll
me.
call this song exactly what it is. Okay.
Right.
Mess.
Now, speaking of Aretha, and you did mention Aretha before, there is the song Almighty Fire
Hmm.
that the Jones Girls are singing. Now, that is one that if Scott has it and is able to pull it up in the next couple of seconds for me, I want people to hear because when we talk about fire, it is it is one of the lesser known tracks from Aretha Franklin. But if I'm not mistaken, it was produced by Curtis Mayfield. Am I correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Produced by Curtis Mayfield, and you and your sisters. Um, I think do you think that there is something about singing with sisters because it's almost like three voices that sound like one, especially since you're so related. Can you talk about?
Yes. It's the same resonance. People used to get us so confused, even when they would call and we would talk over the phone. We sounded absolutely alike. Everyone would be, and then my mother took that she knew those tones in our voices, and she blended them in such a way. I'm talking rehearsal, rehearsal, practice, practice, practice. I look at the old house because we're doing Unsung's doing our story, and we went back to Detroit to
Hmm.
and we went by the old house, and that picture window brought back so many memories because we would be outside playing, and all we would hear is Shirley, Brenda, Valerie, Kim, come on in here, it's time to rehearse, it's time to practice. And the older we got as teenagers, it seemed like we were practicing more to keep us out the street away from the
Hmm.
boys. So,
Oh,
so it's because of the same tones and resonance in our
mhm.
voices. That's what like the other sister groups like Sister Sledge, the
Mhm,
Emotions, because of the same tonality in those
mhm.
voices. That's what gives them the sound.
I had a question about that because some of your contemporaries I did have was the Emotions, Sister Sledge, the Pointer Sisters,
Yes.
all of those groups. Excuse me. I got to go to that go to that card. The Three Degrees.
Yes.
You know, those were also groups like that that sounded like that. And did you ever feel like you were in competition with them?
Never. In fact, we all had our own distinctive sounds.
Hmm.
So, and then we had our own types of music, that we were doing. So, you know how people try to say back in the day that the Emotions
Hmm.
and the Jones Girls were competing, but we weren't. We were really friends, and we would run
Hmm.
across each other on the road. So it was not any of that. That we were all just happy to have the opportunities to get out there and perform.
Hmm.
Yes.
Now, Melba, when going back to you, um, there was also this time in that time period when we were getting into the late 70s and especially going into the 80s, going into the mid 80s. Um, there, you were on television all the time. And I'm talking about Hotel and Flamingo Road and Falcon Crest. And I remember distinctly the episode where Isaac was flirting with you on the Love Boat. Um, I remember when you were Rudy's teacher,
Yeah,
when she wanted to play the cymbals on the
yeah,
Cosby Show,
yeah.
and so all of those things that
Well, see that happened, Corey, because my dear beloved brother Charles,
Mhm,
instead of us having a stable of artists, since we couldn't find no manager, then we formed a stable of managers.
mhm,
And I had one manager, Jerry Silverheart, whose job it was to get me television.
mhm,
So just we Charles worked primarily on recordings, and I have such a catalog now.
mhm,
He's got a kind of triple A personality, so I got a lot of records.
mhm,
But Jerry was the same way with the television and turning that Tony Award into the other things that it should have been. So actually, what happened is we formed a company called Hush Productions, and
mhm,
we had a stable of managers, and so I got to do pretty much everything there was to do.
Yeah, that's when Melba became one of my idols from seeing, because at that time, I was young, but you didn't see many Black women
Right.
that were talented. Her, Melba, Diane Carroll. I mean, yeah, and so consequently, being an upcoming singer myself, whenever I knew that, Melba was going to be on a TV show or something, we, run and, oh my God. And then you talking about the pride of just seeing a fellow sister, a Black woman up there
Right.
doing her thing, which was a rarity in those days. And
mhm.
that's why I say when I had the opportunity to finally work with her, it was a tremendous experience.
He's so sweet. We had such a good time, didn't we?
We did.
We tore up that dressing
We
room. Yeah,
did. We did. So we got to do it again once this pandemic
yeah,
is over with.
very
Oh,
enjoyable.
I will be there when you do it too. I
Yeah.
promise.
But
Okay.
also on that show too was Lisa Morgan and Jean Carn.
Yes.
It was a really wonderful bunch of ladies.
Hmm.
Yep.
That is, man. That's divas to make you sweat.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Speaking of sweating, my producer did say that he pulled up Almighty Fire for me, and so I want to
Good.
just like, bask for just a few minutes, for not a few minutes, for a few seconds with this. Okay, Scott.
All right.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah. Okay, our sound was a little bit spotty. We'll get this. We'll do this again, and I promise when we plug your new songs, we're coming to that in a second. We'll get that just a little bit. We'll try to get that just a little bit cleaner. Um,
Um,
so
Going back to that song,
Mhm.
We did that album right after. Aretha was one of the ones, along with Kenny Gamble, that actually had my sisters and I audition for Sparkle, the original Sparkle. So
Mhm.
this goes back to, being black, and the reason why we didn't get the role. We
Mhm.
heard later those roles. I think they had Irene Cara and
Mhm.
a couple other girls, but Aretha was kind. She was upset that we did not, get it because she just loved our harmonies. I think we had either just done Almighty Fire or we did it right after that.
Mhm.
Um, the reason why we didn't get the role was because of our skin tone. We were dark. So see that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
But we
Yeah.
were
Yes.
dark brown versus they wanted somebody close to
Mhm.
closer to white people. That's what they
Mhm.
wanted at
Because
that
they're,
time.
I was going to
Yeah,
say their audiences were white, so we
right,
still had to consider those prejudices if we wanted to work and expand our audiences.
right, exactly.
I in my musical theater history, I always talk about the brown paper bag test, and
Yeah.
you know, I
Well, I
talk about
failed that every time.
it. You know,
But kept
and
on kept on pushing.
hmm and but it's a real thing. Like
Absolutely.
where that beauty is, but the other part of that though is that looking like, Melba, you had your cloud and that afro and the
Oh,
same.
my rebel hair.
Yes, you know.
See, I'm a little older than Shirley, so I remember, like, as a school teacher or someone who had a normal job, you were not
Hmm.
allowed to wear afro. You had to
Hmm.
straighten your hair.
Hmm. And it's the same with the Jones girls. Y'all had some. Well, it's more than just the hair. It was the fashion for both of you. There were album covers that, in looking through this, and like some of those looks that both of you all had on your album covers that were just incredible. They just knock you out.
Well,
And
we
did you
we
have
learned
stylists, or
after.
did you pick yourself? Did
Oh
you pick
yeah.
your clothes
Oh,
yourself?
Oh yeah, they had people. Each one of our albums, because back then albums were so important because that's how we looked on to see who was singing background, the liner notes. That's what
Mhm,
everybody. So consequently, we are with the record company, especially Kenny Gamble. He was always involved in our album covers because he wanted them to make a statement,
mhm,
and our fashion sense, of course, when you work with someone like Diana Ross for 3 years, you kind of learn to for classy but yet still sexy,
Yeah.
mhm,
and that was the fashion sense that we strove for,
mhm,
without exposing too much of ourselves, but always classy and sexy.
And
mhm,
remembering that you are the packaging.
Yes,
And of course,
exactly.
those album covers are now considered real artwork,
mhm.
as
Very
they
much
are.
so.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
the photography on them, and like I said, in Melba, you had some. It was some fire for you too. Okay, I just know those things. Um,
Well, I don't know. Do you remember the name Richard Avedon?
yes.
These
Yeah.
photographers were artists.
Mhm. Mhm. Did he do
I'm
some of
not
your
going to say that.
shoots?
You've got to go back and look at the album covers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So then, it seems like I'm stuck in the 70s, but I did want to bring up one more thing for you from you, Melba, which is, I think it was 79 when you did Timbuktu.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
with Eartha Kitt,
yeah.
Oh
and
yeah.
that show,
Excuse me, and Jeffrey Holder.
and Jeffrey Holder.
Oh,
Oh my
Jeffrey
goodness.
Holder. Oh my
You know,
God.
like, again, YouTube is such an incredible um, incredible source. I mean, I'll be 50 this weekend, so a lot of
Well,
these things,
come back when you grow up, okay?
yeah, you know, I'm about to cross over, and
Well,
so
so
um,
you're a year older than me because I'm forever 49.
you,
And
you
don't you forget it.
that is the truth. It is the truth. But so in '79, I was 9. But so my parents didn't take me to see Timbuktu, but that I found this YouTube clip of Eartha Kitt's entrance in
Oh yeah.
Timbuktu, where she comes in on top of the men. And
We're lucky she didn't ride in on an elephant.
she is a diva in that capital D sense of the
Absolutely.
word.
Real
Mhm.
diva. Yes.
And so how was she working? And then I want to ask about Jeffrey Holder as well. But um, those two artists, like with that capital A kind of artist,
Mhm.
how was that? And was it
Well, Miss
stressful?
Eartha was challenging,
Really?
so I kept my distance because she's an athlete. She could kill you. And she's used to get, she's just, I say used, she is, because somewhere she's still with us, used to getting her way, used to being in charge. And when you hire her, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeffrey wanted me and he wanted Eartha.
Mm-hmm.
It was his show.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, Timbuktu is a remake of Kismet.
Yes.
And so that I think was originally classical. And was it Shakespeare? I'm not sure, but I know it was something classical.
Well, I know that one of the actors, oh gosh, why did I just forget his name? Is it Price? That was
Gilbert, Gilbert
yes,
Price.
that
He's an
was
opera singer.
an opera singer, and
Beautiful
so yeah,
opera
he was
singer.
classically
Well,
trained.
excuse me, so am I.
Yes.
That's my natural.
Well, yeah, we'll not
Shirley
forget
there
that
for
you
that.
got your degree in music. Yes.
No, that's my natural voice. I was a lyric soprano, but I wanted to make records, so I learned how to sing house and R&B.
Hmm. And we're going to come to that in a second because that, your house track is so nice. I love that. Just Doing Me is
Just
so
doing me. Yeah.
nice. But so I did want to talk a little bit about some of the lean times because, when when you told Aunt Missy being colored is a lot of fun when ain't nobody looking. There are also the challenges with that. Am
You
I
can say the
correct?
same thing about showbiz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, what were some of your biggest challenges through some of this? Like, what were some of those lean times, and how did you pull yourself out of those things?
If I could try to make it kind of basic in general, it's just that I was raised by artists. I was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
No one taught me anything about the business, and I entered the industry without even a manager.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know how I got where I got. I mean, I got in the Broadway show Hair because they were still casting, and the two lead players were also the writers.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought Valerie and I had interesting personalities. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't really audition to get into the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in the show for a year and a half. And before I left, I auditioned for and got the female lead. But I wound up being the first Black actress to replace a white actress in a lead role. And the actress turned out to be Diane Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say the hand of the Lord was on me. So I didn't know what I was doing. And one of the girls in the chorus of Hair reminded me that I didn't know how to audition. And while I was in the theater, I should start going up for some things. But I never heard of what was going on. Wasn't a Broadway person. She told me about the auditions for Pearlie. I was trying to learn how to audition, but I got the part.
I I saw that where you said you didn't know how to audition and you just kind of put it all together.
But she explained to me that and this she had the script of Pearlie. She knew about it. She had already auditioned for it, And
Mhm.
she explained to me that you had to try to do what you call typecast. And that is, you study the role as much as you can, and you try to look like the part when you go up for it. Well, I was raised by a woman from the backwoods of South Carolina, and
Mhm.
she was an orphan, illiterate. She was a domestic. She was my nanny, and she never learned to read or write. She was a cotton copper. So uh, 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 that's how I acted. That's how I. And many Americans are like that. We have two ethnicities, whatever
Mhm.
normal, original country we came from. And of
Mhm.
course, most of us came from the South.
Mhm.
So they gave me
Right.
a Tony Award for acting like my nanny.
Now,
And of
Shirley.
course, it was a gospel show. And so the audiences were 99% white. So they, thought I was a very good actor. That's what they.
Mhm. And Shirley, are you? Do you have Southern roots? I know you're from Michigan. Am I correct? You're from
Right.
Detroit.
From
Yeah.
Detroit. Yes.
Mhm.
My people, my mom's and my mom is from North Carolina. In fact,
Really?
I'm trying to get all of that information now through I just sent off my kit for ancestry
Mhm.
because with her being deceased, I all I know is my mother's mother passed away when she was 2 years old, giving birth to her younger sister. And then her father passed away at 14. So I have a 90-year-old cousin that's been giving me all the different information on my grandfather's side. And then I have ran across some cousins on my grandmother's side. So they're
Mhm.
filling it in and the blanks. And then I'm sending all of that into ancestry.com. So I'll know exactly
Mhm.
where we come from.
And
That.
I'm nodding my head because my mother was a single parent. She was
Mhm.
gone. My father wasn't there. My grandmother was there, but she had had strokes and didn't speak. So I don't know my family. I
Mhm.
don't know
Yeah.
them. And this is
Yeah.
very common for African Americans because if we were brought here as slaves and our families were destroyed.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Do you ever feel like that that's a missing part of your, I don't know, a part of your DNA, a part of like this mystery part of your being, or do you feel complete?
There are absolutely parts missing. I can tell that now because there are many things I'm trying to catch up now and explaining to my daughter because she wants to know who she is. I said, oh, gee,
Yeah.
I got used to doing without these parts because I never had them. But when she reminds me, I said, oh, yeah, well, we did this, we did that. And then I started out as an only child, so I didn't have
Mhm.
anybody to talk to. I'm not used to
Yeah.
talking to people. That's why I
Mhm.
And
talk so much, Corey.
we're we're small. But I do after Brenda's tragic death in 2017 is when I became more interested to find out. That's why because I really want to find out the grandfathers and the great grandfathers and grandmothers. So I am working on that. So I'm looking forward to getting all of that the history put together because I'm the only one left now to
Mhm.
to be able to pass it on to Cam and PJ.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And my daughter's doing the same thing. She's looking up
Yes.
our ancestry.
Oh, got you.
So in a minute, she'll tell me who I am.
Yeah.
You know, let's look at a couple of current things. Like, um, I guess the first question is, with the funeral last week with for John Lewis, did you all ever have any? What was sort of your intersection with civil rights and with like like the Black Arts movement and that sort of thing? And how do you think like where it was compares to where it is now? Or do you feel like it's just a circle, like a big old circle, and we're almost right back where we started?
Well, I don't think we're right back where we started. I'm so proud of this younger generation because they're taking the mantle of say, John Lewis, who I had the absolute pleasure of meeting and performing for in Chicago at
Hmm.
one of Jesse Jackson's push conventions, my sisters and I. Um, and I think that these young people are taking, they're just saying, hey, like John Lewis and those and Martin Luther King during that era, they weren't taking it, and they broke down a lot of barriers. But
Mhm.
then we just became so comfortable that we let this racism rear its ugly head,
Mhm.
especially once this president recently, once he became president. I'm saying they've, a lot of these people have just come up from the ground. That's
Mhm.
what I say, and they're rearing their ugly head. And these young people are standing up. They're and saying, no, we're never going back. We're not going back. And I am so proud of the Black Lives Matter and all of those other groups that are associated with them. And
Mhm.
I'm right there. I'm right there with them. I just recorded a song. Well, the song is old, but we just did a video. Cynthia Biggs, the girl that wrote Nights Over Egypt, called "There Are No Differences," that
Mhm.
a couple of organizations want to use
Mhm.
as their song, because we have to do something. We've got to be right there behind these young people and fight right along with them for the sake of John Lewis. He's not here anymore, but the rest of us older that know and know what we've gone through, we're right there with these young people, and I commend them.
Mhm.
Absolutely and totally agree with Shirley. And what I've done is I've re-released our Negro National Anthem because as a New Yorker and gone to Catholic school, I didn't know our history. I didn't know that we had a song that identified us as a nation because, of course, we were brought here as slaves, and so much of our personality has been eroded. And I had some time off in the 80s, and I was watching the NAACP Awards, I think, and I saw the great, unbelievable Dr. Dorothy Height.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And I called her up and I asked her, could I come and be with her organization of the
Mhm.
National Council of Negro Women? And to make a story a little bit shorter, I traveled around with her and her Black family celebrations with these outdoor festivals in every major city that had a large Black population. And she
Mhm.
said, "Well, Melba, you're here. Why don't you sing? Why don't you sing something for our prayer breakfast or something?" I said, "Well, what do I sing, Dr. Hyde?" She said, "Well, why don't you sing the Negro National Anthem?" I said, "Well, I didn't know we had one." But
Oh,
I
you
went
did a great job on
She
that
learned it
thing.
I
fast.
went and I found
Yes.
it, and I was with
Mhm.
Capitol Records at the time, and our A&R person was his name was Scott Folks, and he was a Black person, so he knew my sensitivity and desire to try to do something with it, and he said yes, and he helped me. He got BB and CC Winans, he got Stevie Wonder, he got Bobby Brown. How you get Bobby Brown? You know,
Yeah,
he was
uh,
with New Edition. You got Dionne Warwick, the
and
Clark
Stephanie Mills.
sisters,
Yeah.
Stephanie Mills, Howard
Mhm.
Hewitt, and we did now because I asked for that because I thought if this is a success, there'll
Mhm.
probably be a lot of at least African American people that will think it's just my hit record. And
Mhm.
so the National Council, NAACP, excuse me, gave a special permission to record it and also helped us with the Black Caucus, headed by that time Walter Fauntroy, to enter it into the congressional record as the official African American national
American.
anthem.
Yes.
You know, I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Congressman Fauntleroy years and years and years ago, and he he was one of those people who stirred my soul. He was such an amazing person.
Yeah.
Um, so, what about today? The current state of entertainment. What are you thinking today? Like, where do we need to go now?
Hmm.
Well, where we need to go is, it seems like a resurgence. The young generation are all of
Mhm.
a sudden listening to old school music again. And I think a lot of them are attracted to it because of the live instruments that we
Mhm.
used back then, the lushness of the strings and the horns and the rhythm section. Nothing was synthesized or anything like that. And then vocally,
Mhm.
they're hearing real vocals. That's why they go back to no auto tunes or any of
Mhm.
that, real singing. And I tell people all the time, because there's this resurgence of people interested in knowing about, you know, how my sisters and I, how we learn to harmonize. And I tell them, It's hard work, practice, practice, practice. And when we were recording back in the day, there was no such thing as singing one or two lines and then they could fly it in through the whole song. You had to
Mhm.
sing that stuff over, and Melba knows,
From the
over and
beginning.
over, and then
You didn't
exactly the same way,
right. You didn't want
which
to make a mistake at the end because you had to start all the way
exactly
from the beginning.
exactly. And I think that was good training for all of us, so that when we're performing live, people always say, "Oh my God, you sound just so much like the record." That's because of all that in the studio all night long, having to sing the same thing over and over and over again.
We are the instruments, really.
Mhm.
Yes, we are. Those are
But
yes.
and like there were so many aspects of like both of your music, like like Melba with your "Lean on Me," that note, everybody, that's like the legendary thing. That note is, if
Oh
as
yes,
they said, it's what the longest recorded note
yes.
on an R&B record. Am I
Well, they
correct?
get very strong doing it over and over and over and over and over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
You do.
And like I've become obsessed with like the bass line on "You're Gonna Make Me
And make
Love
me,
Somebody Else."
yes.
I
Oh
love
yeah.
that bass on that.
Oh yeah. Jimmy Williams. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just feel it. And
Yeah.
so, and the amazing thing is y'all haven't stopped recording because both of you have new songs. Am I correct? You've
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do have your songs. We'll start with Shirley's song.
Well,
Do you
yeah,
want to talk about it a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
my song, I Won't Tell, which is doing very well. I get a track sheet all the time, and it's in Australia, it's in Europe, it's in the Netherlands, the UK, and it's going on well, it's been on radio here, but it's going nationally within
Mhm.
the next 3 or 4 weeks. And what it is, it's a remake of my favorite Jones Girl song, which is "Who Can I Run To?" And I
Mm,
decided to write lyrics to it. And I called a friend of mine. He's deceased now, Al McKenzie in Detroit, because I wanted live instruments. I wanted to remind people of the good old days when we had all of these live instruments on the songs. And I went to Detroit and recorded it and
mhm.
wrote these. It's about an illicit love affair, but hey, that happens in life too.
Oh,
And,
yes, it
and that
does.
and that's how I Won't Tell was born. So
Well, let's listen to a little bit of it.
I'm leaving. It was so nice. But I gotta get home to my husband. You gotta feel we gotta every for years we've had this special day at the Hilton.
Special Day at the Hilton.
And I did all the background harmonies because I can duplicate the sound of the Jones Girls. So that's
I
why I
was
did
going
all
to
the background.
say, I was going to ask you who recorded your background vocals, but you did them yourself, and
I did them myself.
you did them in the style of your sisters.
Exactly. I do all
Wow.
my own background vocals now
Mhm.
because when in all of my songs, I'm out there now keeping the legacy of the Jones Girls alive. And the
Mhm.
best way for me to do that is to, when I'm doing a recording, to do the voices myself. But then I have fantastic singers in
Mhm.
in London that, and then I have fantastic singers here. Two sets actually, one set in Chattanooga, the other set in DC, that
Mhm.
have been with me for like over 10 years because once I find them, I have to keep them because my whole purpose of being out there and performing is to take people back to the memory down memory lane with the
Mhm.
sound, with that Jones Girl sound. So I'm quite hard on background singers, but I absolutely have some fantastic ones. But when it comes to recording, I do the
Mhm.
voices
You
myself.
do them yourself, but
Yes.
when you're on the road, you've got to.
I have fantastic ladies. The good
Yeah.
thing that is that they all grew up on Jones Girls music, and they're like, "Do we have it right? Please tell me. What do we need to do?" Because they want to sound so much like us to make sure that we're giving the audiences the best that we can of that sound.
hmm And then, so then for you, Melba, you have a new song,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just doing me.
I
Just You and Me.
am.
And
Yeah.
I saw a video the other day, people of a girl just roller skating for her
The
life.
thing is taking off so much, Corey. I didn't get to do my video yet. Everybody's doing their video. I think the magic of the song, besides the great music, is everybody hears it and they think they just doing them.
hmm
So
Yes. And so, where did you find this song? Did someone come to you with it?
yeah, I'm very, very blessed. It was written by George Pettis, and he works with his wife. She does the lyrics.
hmm
They know me very well. They've been watching me, so I
hmm
got a chance to work with them on this Forevermore album.
hmm
And she wrote these lyrics, and I just been doing what they want me to do. So
hmm
if it sounds like I'm egotistical, it's not. They wrote these lyrics.
But it's so perfect for it's
It
perfect for
really
now.
is.
Just
But
doing me.
George,
Yes,
you hear
I
George
love it.
on
It,
the keyboards. He's an incredible. He will remind you of. I can't think of some of some of the great piano players back in the 50s, 60s,
hmm
jazz piano players.
hmm
They like Wynton Kelly or Horace Silver or Thelonious Monk.
hmm
This
Ah,
age
okay.
of we
Yes.
called it modern jazz.
hmm
So and it has that energy.
hmm
And I think the other thing it has, I'm a born again Christian, so I'm Catholic, but I got Pentecost.
Yes. Yes.
It
You
has
know,
an energy.
before I have Scott pull up your song, that made me think of, you see, you brought something to mind, which was the movie that you did with so many people. What was it? Shirley Caesar and Ann Nesby and Mike Epps and Angie
Surviving
Stone
temptations.
and yes, Eddie Lavert and Montel Jordan.
Yes,
Um,
Shirley, you probably don't know this. My character was Bessie Cooley.
In the
Beth,
fight, that
the
was
Fighting
that the
Temptations.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I know that movie. Yeah.
yes, with Beyonce. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Cuba
um,
Gooding Jr.
question. How was Cuba to work with? And of course, how was Beyonce to work with? Or
Well,
did you really get to interact with them much?
enough. They're beautiful people, but I like to tell it this way. I spent a lot of my time studying Jesus, okay?
Mm.
And I knew who Cuba Gooding Sr. was.
Uh-huh.
I kind of knew who Cuba Gooding Jr. was. But when we did the choral gospel scene and he stood still and did a backflip over, I fell out. Is he gonna do that again? And of course, Ed Nesby's voice is ridiculous.
Yes.
Oh yes,
You
Yeah.
remember
I
that do
love
what they
it.
did in the beginning of the movie with her and Pastor Shirley?
Mm-hmm.
I called a Shirley Caesar Little Caesar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is a tiny little. She is
Yeah, but
not.
she's so powerful, you know.
Yes,
Mhm.
she is. Yes.
Yes.
And as far as Beyonce's concerned, I think she just made me and everybody look short and ugly. She's so tall.
Really.
Well, I'm not very tall, so maybe I
Mm-hmm.
just thought
No.
she was tall. I had
Mm-hmm.
to look up.
And that was Beyonce before Black is King, before Beyonce. And
Oh
so
yeah.
she's just a sweet girl from
I
Houston,
think it was
right?
like maybe her, well, maybe her second movie.
Mm-hmm.
just spreading our wings a little bit.
Hmm.
Starting to. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So I think um we have your song pulled up now. So let's hear I'm just doing me. Just doing me. Here we go. Okay. There has been something off. Are we going to be So this is what I'm going to do because it's not feeding through the system for your songs. I'm going to put up links at the end of all of this for both of you, for people
Okay.
to be able to listen to both of your songs because they're both really wonderful pieces that
And they
um,
can download them.
they
They're on
can.
Right.
all
Yeah,
the digital platforms,
they're on
Spotify.
everything on
Yeah,
Spotify and
so they
on
can download them too.
mm,
Yes.
that's right. Then you get paid.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Shirley says
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Mhm. So, we're almost. Actually, it looks like I'm almost over time because I promised it was going to be 45 minutes, and for some reason, uh, just talking to you two has just been so delightful that I just can't stop. But but it looks like I'm going to have to because and I want to ask my last question, which is um you know, as legends, and I mean literally music legends, both of you, um there are so many students and so many people that look to you as beacons within the music industry and look at you as beacons within the entertainment industry for the things that you've done. And I wanted to know what is your advice for young artists who are trying to start out or who are trying to make their way? Like, if you have wisdom from your collective 100 years of experience, your century of experience, what is that? What would you say to them?
Well, for me, I even though I'm out there still keeping the legacy of the Jones Girls alive, I've kind of passed the baton on to my son and nephew, who are both producers and writers. In fact, they have a hip hop version of "Who Can I Run To"
Mhm.
that's out doing very well. As and I tell them, because both of these guys have been in the industry, they've studied their craft, and that's what I say: study your craft, rehearse, practice, 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 so that when that opportunity presents itself, you're ready for it. And it's not easy, but practice makes perfect. And I've always been one to strive for perfection. And you
Mhm.
have to practice. Don't just think that you're going to rely on auto tunes and somebody flying a bad note all throughout a song. So if you practice, you can sing on key without auto tunes, and then but it comes through a lot of hard work and practice.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree with Shirley. But I think the thing that caused me so much trouble is I didn't understand that whatever your talent is, and you should study it and do it without pay as much as you can, so that you can.
Mhm.
Money shouldn't be the first thing. But you must understand that whatever industry you go in, there has to be the business aspect of it. You need
Yeah,
to learn that, and you
right.
and if and we're in an age where you can be an entrepreneur, and basically that means you're in charge of your time, your talent,
Exactly.
your life, and
Your
it all,
brand.
yeah,
Yeah.
and your brand. But if you don't have a brand, everything has a budget. You have to have money.
Mhm.
You have to eventually, even if you're a child, one day you're gonna have to put a roof over your head.
Mhm.
You
Right.
have to have food. You have to have clothing, and nobody ever tells you that. And so you kind of get out, and you're so focused on whatever it is you're so interested in, which is what you should be.
Hmm.
But then you get somebody you don't even know to take care of the most important part, and that is, how do I eat? So you've got to learn business.
I would
Yeah.
say that, that's an important aspect of understanding who to trust and how much you trust them. You know
Well,
that.
I don't get to trust yet.
Hmm.
Learn how to count money. If you're a child, try to get a job. Like they used to have jobs selling papers or whatever.
Hmm.
Did something. I remember hearing that Cher's parents had a little candy store. That means to me one of the reasons she's so smart is because it was business done somewhere in her environment as a child.
Hmm.
So, and I would say teachers and who are taking care of young people, make them aware that they have to make a living.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be music. You might wind up not doing music, or these days you can have more than one vocation.
Yes,
You have to
exactly.
understand the business aspect of it or the financial aspect of it.
Hmm. Hmm. I Well, it has been almost exactly, just over exactly an hour, and I think this has been an enlightening time. Um, I have had so much fun talking with both of you. You're both. I could sit here for another hour, but I don't want to wear you out or wear our audience's patience out. And so, if from the bottom of my heart, I thank you personally for the contribution that you've made in the soundtrack to my young life as I approach 50. Um, but of what that is, of my parents. My mother wanted me to make sure that I told Melba that she saw you in Pearlie in Baltimore in 1972 or 71. And
Thank you.
and how much she loved you, and how much of like was posting on Facebook, like I distinctly remember Dance Turned Into a Romance on Soul Train, and like watching you three um
Ah,
doing your thing. And so
yeah.
so from me personally, I thank you. And on the behalf of the Charlotte theater community and the Theater Charlotte organization, I
Yes.
thank you for your time as well. Okay. So,
Well,
Well, I had
thank
fun.
you. Yes, we had fun, and it gave me an opportunity to see my Melba
Yeah, it's
during
so
the
good to see you,
pandemic.
really.
Love you guys. Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, y'all have a good night.
All
Alrighty.
right. Bye now.
I was just making sure we're off the air. Okay. It looks like we're still